Oh. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to We Are in the Golden Age. I'm your host, Peter Ross of the Mount family. This update is very special. Reason being is that there are more episodes of Independent Energy series on their way, packed with great stuff and things for you all to see. Also, it's because we are doing the Revelatorium Revelations video series, which features interviews and commentary from the Wordsmith himself, Delanova Star Livingstone, as well as weekly Stargram readings of the Revelatorium Revelations in the video series. The Revelatorium Revelations can be explained as your preschool, the university of creation and the creators of Alpha and Omega. Here is Delanova Star Livingstone. Thanks you for joining us today, Delanova. We appreciate it.
It's certainly a pleasure and a privilege to be here, you know. I mean, golly, you went to a lot of work to get a good mic.
Indeed, yes. It was a battle of its own, that one. I was grateful to creation, though. It seemed to do a sigh of relief when it all came forward. And now that this is transpiring, we're probably changing the timeline already. So let's start with just a couple quick questions. The first question would be, how did you get started with the Revelatorium?
Well, all right, it's a long back trail, okay, that started in the mid-'60s. Actually, it started, it's a specific date. It's actually quite an amazing thing. It was 10 o'clock on October 10th of 1963. And if you remember, we went through the 49 houses of the Mayan calendar.
Yeah.
Well, that was the switch that started the first house going. Almost in the heels of that, up came hippies who were different from their parents because they were aware of consciousness. Their parents weren't aware of consciousness. Okay. And in fact, their parents of the hippie generation are the last generation. You know, it talks about the last generation. Well, this is where it now started. So the switch was turned on in 63, and by 65, I had started, up until I was a rugby player, football player, math student, philosophy student, you know, squares, 3Ds you could get it. Absolutely, 3Ds you could get it. And by 65, I was now starting to ask the questions. By 67, my hair was longer than Rob's, and I didn't have a white beard. And I was managing a hippie rock band in Vancouver called Mother Tucker's Yellow Duck, and went through a whole cycle there till the end of the 69 and so on. But by then, the illuminations were coming, you know, all the time and so on. Yeah. And then just to eclipse the story, I'll get into more details, maybe one of the other, lectures we'll give later. But I hooked up with a teaching, a Melchizedek teaching in the beginning of 71. And that went through about 3 or 4 years. And then a long gap happened all the way through towards the end of the 90s, where I didn't really literally do anything. I just sat, you know, I didn't read anything. I didn't talk to anybody. I just stayed put, you know. Then when I was asleep, a voice said, because, and I can't remember the name, I know who it was, but because that has been compromised and can't receive the info correctly, we're giving you a new responsibility. Well, at that point, I was involved with an antivirus business with my brother, and I was handling the sales end of it. He was handling the technical end, and then he decided he didn't want to do that anymore. So I thought I was being handed the technical side of things. Well, about 6 months later, I'd been making small notes, these type of notes.
The Post-it kind of cards.
Yeah, and anyway, I'd been making, and I'd been writing little comments, you know, back from the things I remembered from the teachings and stuff. And I thought, when this is the middle of August, hey, I think I'll put these down to see what I can do here. Well, in 75, I'd written a page and a half. That's how I learned to type. I typed it first time, so I learned to type. And it was the Tree of Life. Now I'm going to do a 2-hour, because the Tree of Life is a big subject, you know. Yeah. But the basic essence of it is the same sun signs, the 12 signs of the zodiac. You have the same 12 centers in your bodily system. It's called the tree of life. You can see it. You know, the mystics talk about the 7 chakras. They're missing the point. There's 12 of them. The same as the 12 sun signs. Aries, Taurus, did it all the way down. So I'd written a page and a half about the tree of life, tying those two together. I think I'll flush that up and do that again. The first time in all this time, I decided to do something there, see? Because don't forget, I've been told 6 months before, we're giving you a new responsibility. Well, I sat down, and instead of doing that, I started typing up these little bullet points. I had about 60 of them. And then the next day I started with one, I flushed it out to a paragraph, 2, flushed it. And then the 3rd or 4th day, I now started taking this together. That's a common, and now I had chapters. And about a year later, I had a website up. It was January of 99. That's when the first Revelatorium come up. All right. And then not too long ago, I'm talking about maybe 3 years ago, the Revelatorium had now become more than 450 pages, which was getting big.
Yeah.
So I split it into 2 completely equal parts. The one part is the part about the intelligent design of creation. Pulled all the parts out and put that into one book. What was left is now what is called the Revelatorium. And starting in April of 2016, the switch was put on to put together the radionic ship, which is the 3rd part of what is now the Revelatorium Revelations.
Yeah.
So that's the sort of the quick background of that. But I want to get back to why I stuck, you know, I mean, there's all kinds of people giving all kinds of teachings, and, you know, wahoo. The Eastern mystics were coming over in droves. Kirpal Singh and Sharon Singh and Maharishi, and all those guys were coming over. They had millions of followers, you know, and they were showing you some of the stuff from the top end of the 4th dimension that came out of Tibet, which was the remnants from Atlantis, because it was free from the floods because it was in a high plateau. It wasn't, you know, so that's all the old negative Atlantean teachings, the yogi and all that stuff. But anyway, people ask me if this sort of heads over into the radionic ship side in a quick little hurry here, but asked me if I'd seen UFOs, and I said, yeah. The first one was in, the lecture started in the beginning of January of 71. They were being given out of the guy's living room on the 2nd floor of a small apartment building in Burnaby, British Columbia. There was a small patio off the back porch, okay? So there was a break, you know, there's a three days, and about, I don't know, we had a coffee break about 7 or 8 o'clock, and 3 of us were out on the porch.
Yeah.
One of them was a 6'9" Sasquatch. They're the gentlest and shyest people on the planet. That's why you don't see them.
Yeah.
But they're the gentlest and the shyest. But they're incarnated. There was I can't even think of his name. Baseball player, a 6'9" baseball player, was also Sasquatch. You can tell when you see them, you know. Anyway, and his brother was 6'10". There were the 2 brothers were Sasquatch, and their parents were normal size. Anyway, he was out there. There was a teenage girl from Ecuador, and the 3 of us were standing yakking about UFOs, and the sky was overcast, and then just like a spotlight, you know, for the celebration spotlight, you know, like a new opening, was going across the, and it was a saber jet, you know, with the silverback wings, and in those days, the sound from the jet would be behind the jet.
Yeah.
There's no sound. Again, there's no sound. At that very instant, she was saying, every time I saw a UFO in Ecuador, I'd get a buzz over the top of my, and that's as far as she got into the sentence. And I said, there's no sound. And the door opened. The guy stuck his head out and said, did you see it? Did you see the flying saucer? And walked back in, i.e. he's hooked up with them. Got my attention. So the second time was in Vancouver in middle of June. By now I'm downtown living in a rooming house sort of thing with my brother. Yeah. And a friend was there, came running upstairs and said, there's a UFO outside. And it was like a tower of, high-rise tower, a canyon. Yeah. You could just see a blue strip of sky overhead, you know. And he said, there's a, right overhead, right in. So I down the stairs, sure enough, a brilliant silver M&M. I can't describe it any other way. Just like a brilliant silver M&M sitting right there.
Yeah.
My brother came out. Where is it? Where is it? He wasn't supposed to see it. So the third time, we're now in Denver. Again, it was with the teacher, Melchizedek teacher. And, he'd gone down to set some action up, similar action up in Denver. And some of us had gone down to help him, do the footwork sort of thing. And now we're going back. So he held an outdoor barbecue for us the morning we were going to leave. There was about 7 or 8 of us who were going to go back up. Right overhead, clear blue sky in all directions, right overhead, there's a big, long sausage-shaped cloud just sitting 1,000 feet up with nice, undefined, shimmering edges. We all knew what it was. Nobody said anything, Anyway, about 11:30, said, all right, let's go over down there. So everybody hops in the car and off they go. We hit on the highway north out of Denver. He and his wife came up behind us as a send-off. They came out about 40 miles. The cloud was right over their car. Honk, tooted, waved, swung around and headed back into Denver, and the cloud went back with them.
That's weird.
So that's how it started. That's how it started.
That's how the Revelatorium started.
Yeah. Now, the new responsibility we're going to give you was, in fact, the Revelatorium, not the fact that I was going to be the technical guy for the antivirus business too, because that was the start of it. And people ask, well, do you channel it? No, there's zero to do it. When this whole thing's over, there won't be any more such thing as channeling. Channeling is an outer ego consciousness getting a telepathic because of their ego, because holy mackerel, I must be important, from entities that shouldn't be doing this, but they're part of the problem. So it's a telepathic communication from, to outer consciousness. The Melchizedek is an inner to inner, and it's a pure thought. You don't get words, you don't get, now I'm going to have to qualify that because there is a side to that, but it's pure thought. Now I call myself the wordsmith because instead of creating the sentences and the thoughts, I got the thoughts and my job was to put them into words. Now, out of the mouth of the dragon, there's a Revelations talks about the beast, feet of the dragon, feet of the bear, mouth of the lion, seed of the dragon, spotted as unto a leopard, that kind of stuff.
Okay.
All right. Well, spotted unto a leopard is all of the different countries of Europe. A mile apart, totally different cultures. Germany and France, 1 mile apart, totally different kind of people. All over Europe, spotted as unto a leopard. That's what that is. All right. The feet of the bear walks a vast Russian landscape. Okay. Out of the mouth of the lion has come the English language around the world. Yeah. Because the English language is the fifth dimensional. The way people think and talk in the fifth dimension is structured the same way as the English language is structured. The wording is different, so on, but the rules, of English language, the 26 characters and how you put them together and all that stuff. That's all fifth dimensional, the way they do it up there. And so the English language was capable of expressing the higher dimensional concepts, reality. So the Revelatorium is written in the English language. That's what I'm getting at. So and then the seed of the dragon, the Asian, which is the dragon theology, as it were. Well, the Asians are the root race of the planet. The planet belongs to the root race. Yeah. Okay. And this is all part of a further talk. But 3.5 million years ago, through Lucifer, they were everything was in the fifth dimension. There was nothing in the third dimension. Okay. And the Luciferians talked them into coming down into the third dimension. All right, for experiment stuff. But once you've reversed your polarity from the creators to the creation, it pulls you in. You can't get back up. Yeah, they've been stuck for 3.5 million years. We're now, it's one of the 19 points I'm going to talk about next week. They are now being brought back up to the fifth dimension, which is why all of the talk about ascension is going on, because they're being brought back up to the fifth dimension now, finally at last. The hayride is over, folks. You've been recycling and recycling and recycling for 3.5 million years, but you can't do it anymore. This is it. Finally, at last, it's done, So that's part of what the whole thing that's going on right now has to do with that. But the Asians are the actual root race.
And
So
we're the voluntary and the
we're the volunteer.
descendants.
When they went into the third dimension, volunteers came from all over creation to keep things together and help them along,
Yeah.
and they've been coming in, and so the disciples of Christ, the sons and daughters of Abraham, the sons and daughters of Ham, the disciples of Christ. I just said that. So, and today they're called light workers, unistars of light, life, and liberty. All of those.
Yeah.
They're the volunteers. We're the volunteers. We're the solution. Now, not all of us are woken up yet. I got up to 65. And again, getting waken up doesn't mean you're going to do anything. Because the one of the key people to have been woken up, or should have been woken up in 59, was partly woken up enough that he was looking into I Am and Theosophical Society, Saint Germain, all of these different things.
Yeah.
And he had the whole cosmic plan of what's coming for Earth laid out in front of him, because he was going to be the sort of the head god for bring it all together and run it.
Yeah.
And he walked away from it. So during 59 through to 71, when a few of the elect Christ did get together, he was to bring together all of the hundreds and hundreds and thousands of elect of Christ, by their works you shall know them. If that had happened, LSD wouldn't have come into the picture, which siphoned off millions. The Maharishis wouldn't have come over from India and siphoned off millions. By the time 71, when a few of us, me included, stepped in and started to say, okay, yeah, this is real, let's do it, kind of thing. Most of them were, it's now you have the Democrats, the Democrats,
Oh yeah.
totally
Demon rats.
compromised. Totally compromised. The fight isn't Republicans and Democrats, it's Antichrist versus Christ.
Right.
It's as simple as that. As soon as you see that, you got the whole thing going on. Trump's on the Christ side, Putin's on the Christ side.
Yeah.
The other guys are on the Antichrist side. So
Yeah, apparently it's actually going pretty good, and the good is actually winning quite well from the reports. So you'd be surprised how many notorious politicians and actors and everything have already been executed.
Well, oh yeah, I know. If you follow the proper news instead of the mainstream news, I think there's 150,000 have already been arrested and or
something like that. Yeah.
dealt with, and let's call it dealt with, appropriately.
Yeah.
The pedophilia stuff, I mean, as horrific as it is, and it's all undercover, down in tunnels and things like that. In Atlantean times, like the Baal, the followers of Baal and so on. Baal wasn't a guy, it was a practice. And that stuff was out in the open on the streets. That's how bad it was. That crap, all of that stuff was out on the street,
Yeah, widely open, and the latter days of malpractice in Atlantis.
Yeah, well, here's something. Sodom and Gomorrah were the two cities of the plains. Like the main portion of Atlantis was the big island up the middle of the Atlantic that everybody knows about. There was also quite a spread of landing across the front of the Himalayas. Northern India, Pakistan, that area, that front of the Himalayas. And there was also mining down in South America and the high plateaus and so on. All of those funny holes in the ground and so on. They were mining aluminum and refining it without using electricity. They were just refining it raw, because Atlantis was built almost out of aluminum. The buildings are all built by aluminum. They didn't last long. They dissolved pretty quickly once, but Sodom and Gomorrah were the two cities of the plains, which is a nice expression because that's North America.
Yeah, definitely.
And Sodom was up between Spokane, Washington, and Creston, BC, on the BC border. Okay, and Gomorrah, which is crime, was one was Vice, Vice, and the other was crime, was offshore Miami. And now, see, I'm just going to follow my train of thought because I'm way off where your first question started. Okay, but it's key. Earth has 12 planets. Every star in creation has a family of 12 planets. Not always fully evolved yet. Sometimes only one or two evolved, but they have a capacity of 12 planets. That's the number of kids they're allowed to have.
Yeah.
And Earth has the 9 that everybody knows about. They have the 9th. The 10th planet is a planet called Vulcan in the photosphere of the sun.
Yeah.
Okay. The 11th is what's called Nibiru, which doesn't have a third dimension yet. It's evolved down to the 4th dimension. All the energies are there. And the matrices are all there for the 3rd dimension, but there's no physical body yet.
Yeah.
So and it comes around every 3,500 years because it's on a long elliptic orbit. So 3,500 years ago when it came around, Earth, the consciousness was in a really, really corrupt, bad state. So the energies of it allowed the Anunnaki and so on to come straight down in and blah, blah. And there was chaos all over the place. This time, consciousness is pretty stable.
Yeah.
Right? No Anunnaki were able to come in. And very, very, very little disturbance took place when it came in in the early 2000s when it came in and swung back out. So nobody noticed it. Everybody's still waiting for Nibiru to come. Well, it's coming gone.
It's already gone. That's
a good sign. That's a good thing because that shows that we're getting out of the muck that we used to be in at one time. So because we're getting back to Atlantis again. And then the final planet, and this is where I was headed to for Atlantis, is between Mars and Jupiter. It's called the Asteroid Belt.
Yeah, Maldek.
It was originally 2.5 million years. Let me slow down. 2.5 billion years ago, it was a planet called Maldek.
Yeah.
All right. And it was a confinement planet. Badasses in the Luciferian, conditions from all over were prisoned there. It was a confinement planet. But in particular, the worst of the worst were 500 so-called black masters from Draconis. So they're black masters. Yeah. And they had evolved the Luciferian themes to such a point of usurpation over others and so on that you really couldn't get much worse than that. I mean, these guys, they're down at the bottom end of it, see? Well, they factioned. Now, that because of the crap that was going on in Maldek, the same like Atlantis, I mean, really bad crap, the atmosphere was crammed full of what's called N+ static. It's like silicon wool. You rub it, you get electric static.
Yeah. But
when your consciousness in the 4th dimension is not harmonious with creation, it generates what's called a negative plus static, anoric static. Okay. So stuff was going on so bad in Maldek that the N+ static had built up like a black cloud over the whole planet in the atmosphere. And the Black Masters factioned into 2 groups. They had complete, crystal technology and so on, lasers and so on, and they lasered each other and blew the planet. So that's the asteroid belt. Okay. The looser, the water, oceans and stuff moved out to form the, not the Oort cloud, that's the farther one out, the Kuiper belt. The Kuiper belt, so on, because that's semi-solid. It's like comets and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then the final one is the Oort cloud, which is way out, which is from the atmosphere and stuff, the light stuff. That's how that stuff got out there. It's the remnants of Maldek.
Yeah.
Earth, 2.5 billion years ago, got smacked by one of the moons that got loose, and that dropped its frequency from you. Some of you guys will know this. It dropped its frequency from 12-strand crystalline DNA down to 2-strand dross.
Yeah.
Low frequency carbon. So a billion years ago, a 3rd dimensional surface evolution was precipitated to eventually bring the planet back up to crystalline, and we're almost there. That's the vegetation grows, dying, and the grass today, 100,000 years from now, is way down there, and it's turned to metamorphine rocks and stuff like that.
Yeah.
The lava, the planet was completely covered in lava. That's the magma dross, the 2-strand dross.
Yeah.
And it's now, the magma is now all pushed back down. And the reason for the tectonic plates is to slowly move, because there's only a temperate zone where this stuff goes on.
Yeah.
It's finished now, because up under the Arctic is tropic. When they drill down, they get tropic because it's done, it's moved up. Now were the last in the last of that. See, so I mean, there's a big plan going on here. You know, it's not just happenstance. You know, but anyway, back to the root races. When Atlantis was set up 10,000 years ago, there was a fairly high energy boost because it was halfway between 25,000 years ago was the Garden of Eden.
Yeah.
And that defaulted because of a miscue by Eve, which everybody knows about. They don't know what the whole story was, but in reality, it's scorched earth. You know, in God's world, it's black or white. You don't, maybe, you know. That's a point to mention too. Earth has been under galactic quarantine for 250,000 years. Yeah. Because the last cycle, which was a 250,000 year cycle, was Lemuria. And the reigning planetary prince at the time decided to move a third of the Adamics root race back up into the fifth before their time. And it's you know, as I say, scorched earth. See, so the planet was put under galactic quarantine. Those that were 100% unequivocally loyal to Christ were moved off to Orion.
Yeah.
Those that were maybe hum-ha stayed behind and had to go through all that glaciation stuff, you know, harsh, and so on. So now we're back into Atlantis. There's a really large stabilization, you know, being set up for Atlantis. And the ones from Orion were brought back. And the ones from Meldeck were brought in.
Yeah.
Okay. Because you can be out of, see, the way we see incarnation, you know, you die, then you die. But in higher, you can be out, you know, in stasis for a long, long period of time and brought back in right where you left off. So anyway, and that was Dante's Inferno, was, you know, the guy who wrote the book in the 16th century, Dante's Inferno.
Yeah.
He was writing it from the point of view of somebody that experienced the explosion on Meldeck. That's what Dante's Inferno was that explosion. Yeah. But anyway, the Black Masters came in too as the Black Masters of Atlantis. Okay. And they were put in Sodom and Gomorrah because they were the most isolated from everybody else, you know, the two cities of the plains. And they got going again. And Baal was their crap, and they had black clouds of stack over their two cities. And they developed their lasers again, and they throw them at each other, and that's what blew the two cities.
Yeah.
You know, the fire was laser. The explosion over Spokane, or just north of Spokane, it flew south along the magnetic, you know, Earth's magnetic field. And there's an area that runs about 120, 30 miles south of Spokane. It's about 50, 60 miles wide. It's called the Palouse. Have you ever heard of an Appaloosa horse? Well, it's because they were bred in the Palouse. The Palouse, nobody can explain the Palouse because it's some of the richest farming country in the world, because that was scorched, you know, after a forest fire, the earth is rich.
Yeah.
Well, so the Palouse is, but that type of soil isn't seen again until way out into the middle of the prairies. The wind blows from the west.
Yeah.
So you tell me. See, you tell me. So they don't know how the Palouse got there. All they know that there it is, but it was because of the flume. And then, you know, they found rectangular rocks and stuff offshore of Miami, which is, you know, where that is. So that ties that whole thing together. Now we're still suffering the, see, there's, now I'm just rabbit talking threads.
Okay. Rob, do you have a question for Dell?
No, I have no question.
All right. Well, just to carry on then, because this sort of ties together into what's going on now.
Yes.
There's planetary law deals with energies of the planet. The people that are doing Druidism and paganism and all that, they're dealing with the energies of the planet. Okay. 14,000 years ago during Virgo, planetary law was reestablished. That's what the pyramids were doing. They were inducting planetary, Yoga was developed because of working with the 9 chakra, you know, with the other 3 missing and so on. And at the end of the Virgo, during the Leo dispensation, which is what Atlantis was, the 2,000 years of the Atlantis cycle, solar laws brought in. All right. And solar law when I mentioned that there's 12 sun signs, and you have the same sun signs through your 12 chakras,
Yeah.
you know, the 7 of them the Indian mystics know about, but they don't know about the other 4 because they sit in the yoga position with their feet crossed and jammed up against the thighs, and your thighs are your Sagittarius, your knees, back of your knees are your Capricorn,
Yeah.
Oh, they're blocking the energy.
ankles are your Aquarius, and the balls of your feet, you know, the crown of your feet are your Pisces. Those are your other 4, which you're missing. They deny that because they sit. So the solar law, oh, I know, yeah, right. Every planet, Earth has 12 planets. Every planet inducts one of those 12 frequencies. Those 12 frequencies, which we call Pisces, that's our names for those frequencies.
Yeah.
Those frequencies are throughout creation. Every planet and every solar system has the same 12, but tailored to their environment, you know, for their frequencies, and that's how a solar system is known. I'm going to go to the solar system. All right, what are the the frequencies of those 12 sun signs for that solar system, and you match those. That's how you go there. You can't go there if you're not matched to their frequencies.
Yeah.
That's how the ships teleport back and forth. The captain.
That's what I was about to say. It sounds like teleportation.
Yeah, you don't have to pull out a Tryon logbook or whatever it is, you know, and
Put in the coordinates,
put in the coordinates.
which is essentially just the frequency.
Anyway, so solar law is simply that each planet inducts and discharges one of the 12 frequencies. They're called astrophysical frequencies. There's only the 12. There's the 12 frequencies that have an induction nature that are to do with the descendancy. Like descendancies, the voluntary are all descendant beings. You know, we're created down, we're fully triune, and our capacity is to manage things. That's the best way to do it. We're the doers. Is right. The evolution, which is the other half of creation, are called the ascendancy. They start in the 5th dimension. They learn about Christ through successive incarnations. That's why incarnation is at the very heart, at the beginning of creation. The evolution incarnate many times through the 5th, learning a bit about Christ every time.
Yeah.
When they're ready, they're ascended up into the 7th, where they learn to put it into practice. And they go through all this big, and then when they're finished with that, then they go back up into the inner creation and end up at the feet of the creators in paradise and get trinitized, then come out as working again with the voluntary, with the descendancy. And creation is constantly expanding. That's the basis on which it's constantly expanding. There's a reason for that. But that's another story. It's not just like, this is how it happened. It happened because. That's the intelligent design part, you know, deals with that particular reason, okay? But anyway, so we have solar law, where every planet has, and it broadcasts its particular frequency with its flavor back out to the other 11. So you end up with 12 frequencies coming in. You have 12 frequencies going out, which is 144 energies moving around the solar system. Those 144 energy principles are how the solar system is known throughout creation. Now, that was to be established during Atlantis.
Yes.
Solar law comes in during Leo, and that was the Leo dispensation. Well, it got short-circuited. So now we're coming up to beginning of Aquarius, okay? Every solar system belongs to a solar sector, and every solar sector has a matrix of 1,000. It's like a star, it can have 12 planets. Well, the solar sector has 1,000 solar systems, okay? So you have galactic law, means that you would know, or you're familiar with the energy frequencies of each 144 energies of every solar system, which is how many? Quick math, how many? You got 144, you got 1,000 galaxies,
144,000.
Guess what the chosen ones are?
144,000.
It's as simple as that. They're the 144,000 energy principles that unite a solar system into the galaxy as a whole through the solar sector stuff. That's what's going on now. We're in Aquarius, and now And the reason why I started this off, you mentioned the Great Book, okay? Because in Aquarius, galactic law is brought into the consciousness. Now that's a double whammy job because solar law never got done properly. So it's being caught up now, and galactic's coming out. The Great Book is the 144,000 rules. Now, the Revelatorium is the Cliff's Notes to the Great Book.
Yes.
Simple as that. It was given as a, as a handle, to get you started.
Pretty much, yeah, and that's the best way, as I could explain it to most laymen's, is it's your preschool university of your understanding of creation and the creators to get you prepared for what's to come.
Yep.
You know?
So anyway, that's probably covered off a fair amount of stuff for tonight.
Oh yeah, no, definitely, we did absolutely outstanding. So definitely thank you, Delstar. I definitely appreciate you. There's going to be a lot more of these, obviously, and it's going to be great fun. I had great fun tonight. Rob, how about you?
Yeah. Thanks, Delstar. This is amazing, all that stuff.
He's still, going through the first parts, and
I'm listening.
Yeah.
He's
There's
not,
a comment I wanted. Some of the people, like when we get into the radionic ship stuff and so on, some of the people, none of the people that are watching this would have got there if they weren't one step in at least and so on, because the negative vibration would have kept them out. The negative people don't see these kind of websites. They just don't see them. They're looking for how to make more money, they don't see these kind of websites at all.
Right.
And that was the funny thing, is because the one time a quote from the Revelatorium came up, and I was like, oh, that's very interesting. And then I logged it in, and then months later, then the quote came up again, or a little thing popped up on my screen with the same quote, and I'm like, so I clicked it, and it went to the Revelatorium, and I was like, I've never had a problem with. I've always been open and stuff, so I never had a problem with controlling the ego and everything and understanding. I've been through the Revelatorium quite a few times, so but Rob here is still working on his first whole.
Well, the Revelatorium is for people that already have 1 foot forward,
Yeah, exactly.
Somebody who doesn't have a clue isn't going to read it, or they're going to have a lot of trouble. But it's to straighten it, because it's called a mentalized illusion. For 3.5 million years, people have been mentalizing how things are. I mean, starting from one time, the whole universe was, the men were following deer trails, and the women were in the cave cooking dinner, washing the kids and talking with their neighbors, and knitting together for clothes, that kind of stuff. Well, that was the, mentalized illusion. That's what it, and it's just built and built and built. Now you got this enormous amount of stuff out of northern India, the gurus, they're called, the ascended masters, so-called ascended, which had come from the negative side of Atlantis across into Tibet. And then when the cataclysms occurred, Tibet was saved because it was too, it's above it all, and it's come down into northern India. And that's where all these, that's why there's so much strife out there, because that's all really negative energy going on. There's a lot of mental. Yes. And so anyway, we're involved with the mentalized illusion, which we're in the Revelatorium is to clear away the illusionary ideas of what's going on. Like the physicists say, the universe is 14.5 billion years across, old.
That's
when their telescopes can say 15 billion years, guess what? It's going to be 15 billion years across and old, but it's actually over 900 trillion light years across. And it's not even out of its diapers yet. It's just getting started.
Absolutely.
That's the difference between the illusion and that's the stuff I'll be dealing with next week. Yeah,
that's creation. It did not occur. It is occurring, right?
Oh yeah, no, creation didn't. This is a whole lecture to come up, but the long and the short of it, the creators are converting original intelligence and particles of substance, which is the original, even before Alpha and Omega, because that became the consciousness, but that's, what entropy is. Things slowly wind down, get
losing it into their ambient.
Your original intelligent breath and tiny particles of substance were undergoing entropy, and they saw that eventually, you can have a vibration You can go 100 trillion times higher
Yeah.
without end. There's no end to how high you can go. But when you're coming down, it's a different story. See, you come down and you got 10 cycles per second. Now you got 1 cycle per 1/1,000,000th of a second. And then when there's no more vibration, it's gone. And they could see it coming down. So they worked, their intelligent design was a plan they worked out that they could convert their original falling stuff into formulations called matter, matter is the lowest form, but manifestations in an outer form that were everlasting, which is what creation is. Pinch yourself. You got an outer body. You've got intelligence in the substance holds the intelligence in its bosom. You know, you've got intelligence, you've got substance, you got energy. Okay. Well, creation is the outer body of the creators. It's that simple.
We are part of the creator's body.
We're in their outer body.
Them, right?
We are them.
We're one of the atoms running around inside.
We are in God, right?
That's right. That's the whole thing. God in and God out. I mean, God is in you, obviously, through the inner cycle, but you're also in God through the fact that you're one of the molecules inside their physical body. Yeah. It's really neat. It's so simple, really, when you get it down there, but it's unfathomable when you don't have that, so. Infinitely
simple, yet infinitely powerful.
That's, good. Yeah, that's right there. It's one of the same.
Right from the Revelatorium.
You've almost got a photographic memory.
I actually believe, honestly, since I've been through it and stuff, I can actually feel the inductions from it. So it's either a soul atom transferring it consciousness to me, inner consciousness.
Yeah.
Because it's straight induction, or because I kind of can feel it when I'm especially when I'm in the presence. Like I got them right here, the books, and I can feel like it just, I believe it's induction anyway, but I've been through them, and maybe it's just, my conditioning from when I was a child in the raising, which is all part and parcel of the responsibility, of taking this project on.
Yeah.
So, it's, I don't know, it's just weird that I can, and it's like, I can almost recite it.
I've got actually a very poor memory. I remember things I need to.
Yeah.
But I can't remember phone numbers. I can't remember names very well,
Yeah.
No, it's okay.
Yeah,
it's all good,
A solution to that is some celery seed extract and some Gotu Cola.
Yeah.
And then,
all right. Well, then, so good.
Cool. No, Delano Star, definitely appreciate it. Thank you, everybody, for tuning into the channel. We are in the Golden Age.
Hey, thanks, Del.
This is Robert. He's going to be another narrator and partnering on this project. So thank you again, everybody. Thank you, Del. We're going to have a lot more of these. There's going to be a lot more enlightenment and knowledge coming everybody's way. Thank you. Please stay tuned. Please subscribe to the channel. We are in the Golden Age. Thank you, everybody, and have yourselves a wonderful evening. Hope you enjoyed. Stay tuned.